distinguished leaders of the African continent, esteemed brothers and sisters of Burkina Faso, fellow Africans, and observers across the world. I stand before you today not as a lone voice in the desert, but as a representative of a continent that has been silent for too long. Africa home, our heritage, our hope has reached a critical turning point. The winds have shifted. The tides of history are no longer written in distant capitals. Today, they begin here, on African soil, by African hands. We are no longer interested in polite conversations that lead to endless promises and no transformation. We are no longer willing to remain the fuel that drives other nations' progress, while our people walk in darkness, thirst, and hunger. The wealth beneath our soil is not a curse, it is our inheritance. And it shall now serve our people first. In recent months, Burkina Faso, along with our fellow sovereign states across the Sahel and beyond, has begun a bold journey and irreversible shift toward genuine independence. And today, I make this declaration to the world, not in hostility but in truth. Africa will no longer export its mineral resources to be exploited by foreign powers. We will refine, utilize, and transform our wealth here for our people. And yes, this message is addressed to everyone, including those who have historically benefited from Africa's open doors, including the United States and its former leaders, such as Donald Trump. Let me be clear. Africa is not at war. Africa is not in crisis. Africa is simply waking up. For decades, our minerals gold, uranium, cobalt, lithium, manganese have been dug out of our earth and sent away. Ships arrived full of equipment and promises, and left overflowing with our future. What did we receive in return? Loans, lectures, sanctions, and the illusion of partnership. But now, the mask has fallen. Today, Burkina Faso stands in solidarity with Mali, Niger, Guinea, and all African nations who have found their voice. We are not looking for enemies, we are building alliances. But we will no longer accept imbalances. We will no longer be quiet about our suffering, while others dine on our resources. We have been called poor by those who profited off our gold. We have been called unstable by those who destabilized us for access. We have been called third world by those who built their empires from our first world minerals. I say, enough. Let this be heard clearly from Ouagadougou to Washington, from Accra to Brussels, from Addis Ababa to Beijing. Africa is not begging for a seat at the table. Africa is building its own table. And to the former President of the United States, Mr. Donald Trump, who once proudly declared that America is not the world's policeman, yet whose economic policies ensured America remained its toll booth operator. I say this with all due respect. Leave Africa alone. Let us grow. Let us rise. Let us heal. Burkina Faso is a sovereign nation, and we have chosen the path of dignity. We have chosen to keep our gold underground until we have the capacity to refine it. We have chosen to keep our lithium until we have the factories to build batteries. We will no longer rush to sign contracts written in foreign boardrooms. To those who see this as radical, let me remind you, there is nothing radical about self-respect. Our ancestors fought colonial rule with weapons. Today, we fight neo-colonialism with policy, unity, and economic courage. This moment is not about defiance, it is about destiny. And so I call on every African government, every leader, every youth movement, every farmer and miner. Let us unite in vision. Let us not be divided by borders drawn by those who never intended us to thrive. Africa is not divided, it is awakening. In the decades following the so-called independence of our nations, the chains of colonization were merely transformed from iron to ink, from shackles to contracts. What was once enforced by force is now maintained by financial dependency. We were told we were free, yet we remain trapped in debt cycles, export quotas, and foreign-imposed development models that never served our own. What is sovereignty without control over your economy? What is freedom if your minerals are exported raw and returned as luxury products your people cannot afford? What is national pride if your currency is printed in a foreign land? These are not rhetorical questions. They are the foundation of our renewed philosophy of governance. And to begin the process of transformation, we must start at the root, our resources. For too long, Burkina Faso has been a land of paradox, a country rich in gold, yet poor in infrastructure. A land where the ground glitters, but the people go hungry. That contradiction ends now. We are investing in our own mining and refining infrastructure. Not because we wish to isolate ourselves from the world, but because we wish to participate on equal footing. No more one-sided contracts.
Welcome to Talk of Africa 360, your source for insightful news, analysis, and thoughtful commentary. If you value informed perspectives and fact-based reporting, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss an update. Disclaimer: the content on this channel is based on reliable public sources and credible online information. It is intended strictly for educational and analytical purposes. We do not promote or endorse political violence, hate speech, or any form of discrimination. Our goal is to inform, not to inflame. Thanks for being here. Let's stay informed together.
Good evening, Africa. Good evening, world. This is Talk of Africa 360, so we bring you a landmark declaration that is sending shockwaves across the geopolitical landscape. In a bold and historic speech delivered earlier this week, Burkina Faso's President Captain Ibrahim stood before the international press and the people of Africa and made a powerful statement, a message directed clearly at former U.S. President Donald Trump and to the entire Western world. Africa is at peace now, and we will no longer export our mineral resources to feed foreign economies while our people remain in poverty. Tonight, we delve into the meaning, the background, and the global impact of this momentous declaration. It is a speech that signals not just political resistance but an economic and ideological revolution. Over the past century, Africa, home to the world's richest natural resources, has seen its gold, uranium, cobalt, lithium, oil, bauxite, copper, and diamonds mined and exported under systems crafted by colonial and neo-colonial forces. Speaking at a press conference in Ouagadougou, the young revolutionary leader declared that, for too long, Africa's treasures have been shipped overseas. In response, President said, "Mr. Trump, Africa is not your battleground." Here's what President's government and its regional allies in Mali, Niger, Guinea, and others are already implementing: a ban on raw material exports. No more unprocessed gold or lithium leaving the country without value added. National refining plants are being established to process minerals locally. Leaders in Zimbabwe, South Africa, Tanzania, and the DRC have praised the move, with some preparing to adopt similar policies. This creates jobs through industrialization, retaining the value chain within the country. We seek peace, but we will no longer purchase peace at the cost of our dignity. To the youth of Africa, we are no longer asking for a seat at their table. It is a milestone, perhaps the clearest sign yet that Africa's long walk to freedom is becoming a run. We are building our own. To the mothers and farmers, your sweat will now water the crops of African prosperity. Stay informed, stay empowered, and as always stand with Africa. To our ancestors, your fight was not in vain. To our children, this is the Africa we promised you. And he concluded, looking directly into the cameras, "Mr. Trump, Mr. Biden, Mr. Macron, we will meet as equals, but do not come expecting business as usual. Africa is no longer for sale." He emphasized that Africa must own its production, protect its intellectual property, fund its research, educate its youth, and build its infrastructure with its own resources. New trade policies are being formed, favoring African partners and South-South economic cooperation. Most importantly, local ownership of resources is being prioritized, ending exploitative contracts and empowering national mining companies. We are not the chessboard for your competition with China, Russia, or any power, but turn them into smartphones, batteries, solar panels, electric vehicles, and tech components right here in Africa. And that is how Africa begins to break free from centuries of dependency. We are no longer pawns in the global game of domination. In Washington, D.C. and Brussels, some officials have expressed concern over what they call resource nationalism. They worry that African countries will no longer be as open to multinational mining giants, many of whom have operated under tax-free or royalty-exempt conditions. Meanwhile, in Beijing and Moscow, reactions have been more cautious but respectful, indicating a willingness to work under Africa's new terms. He added, "Africa is at peace not because we are weak but because we have decided to defend our dignity with wisdom. We are building our industries, training our youth, and protecting our sovereignty. Our people watch as foreign planes fly off with what belongs to us, while we import finished products made from our own minerals at 10 times the price." He continued, "This is no longer acceptable. Our resources will now serve our own development. We will no longer sell raw gold, raw lithium, or raw cobalt. We will refine it, process it, and use it to build Africa's future." Multinational corporations, backed by powerful governments and protected by opaque agreements, have reaped trillions of dollars from Africa's soil, often leaving behind environmental damage, community dislocation, and widespread poverty. But under the leadership of Ibrahim, a new era is emerging. The most striking part of the speech came when turned his attention to former U.S. President Donald Trump, who had previously made statements urging American companies to secure mineral access in Africa before China does. It was a firm but diplomatic rebuke, and it resonated not just in Africa but across the developing world. Now, what does no longer exporting raw minerals mean in practice? This shift means that countries like Burkina Faso will not just extract minerals. Unsurprisingly, this speech has drawn mixed reactions globally. Across Africa, however, his statement has sparked a wave of national pride and political awakening. This speech is more than just about minerals. It is a declaration of African economic sovereignty. President stated, "We are not anti-West, we are pro-African." This is the Pan-African vision of Thomas Sankara, Kwame Nkrumah, and Patrice Lumumba revived in the 21st century. Ended his speech with words that are already being shared across social media platforms. Ladies and gentlemen, this is more than just a speech. Thank you for joining us on.
As reactions continue to pour in from across the continent, one thing is clear. Africa is demanding respect, sovereignty, and accountability. Was this just a diplomatic misstep or a deeper sign of shifting global alliances? We'll be watching closely. If you found this story important, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more real, unfiltered African news. This is Talk of Africa 360, telling the stories that matter.